All right, well, we'll make a start. So thank you so much to everyone who's joined us this evening. It's really great to connect with you all, so we really appreciate it. And on behalf of Good Sports, we all really hope that you're all taking care and keeping safe during this time. Good Sports have had a number of conversations with community sporting clubs over the past couple of months. We recently conducted a survey with our Good Sports clubs nationally, and it got a bit more of an understanding of the challenges that clubs are facing and the opportunities ahead. And my co-presenter Hugh tonight, he's actually been talking to sporting clubs across Tassie for pretty much every day since we've been in lockdown over the past couple of months. So hopefully tonight, what we share with you in terms of information and resources, you can take back to your club and your club members and instill into the community. I do want to emphasise that this is just the start of the conversation, and your Good Sports relationship manager will be in touch following the forum to discuss all this stuff in a little bit more detail, and to also talk about some of the other awesome programs that we do through Good Sports. So my name is Steph Maculaitis. I'm the Acting Regional Community Development Manager for the Good Sports team in Tasmania. And my co-presenter tonight is Hugh Graham, who is one of two Good Sports relationship managers for Tasmania. So I'll hand over to Hugh to introduce himself and to do acknowledgement of country.
Thanks, Steph. As Steph mentions, my name's Hugh. I've worked with Good Sports for about a year and a half, and I'm the relationship manager and community development officer for basically the south of the state, which is essentially all of the clubs from the Midlands downwards. I'd like to start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today. Where I am, it's the Muinina people, and we pay respect to their elders past, present, emerging, and acknowledge their continuing relationship to land, waters and culture.
Thanks, Hugh. So tonight's agenda, we'll talk a little bit about the work that we do at the Alcohol and Drug Foundation. Hugh will talk about the Good Sports program, essentially giving you guys a refresher and really talking to the work that the Tassie crew do to support community sporting clubs through the Good Sports program. We'll touch on a couple of key topics that we're hearing from sporting clubs that are of huge relevance at the moment, and that's around social media and mental health. And we're seeing some really great examples of sporting clubs using their social media channels to connect with people and to promote key messaging. So Hugh will talk through a few examples of those, as well as sharing some tips and resources. We will touch on mental health, and one of the beauties of the Good Sports program in Tassie is we have the Healthy Minds program. So that's really looking at how to have open and inclusive conversations around mental health with your club members. It's looking at how you can implement a mental health policy, as well as connecting people up with relevant experts and services in the local area. So we'll touch on that. And then Hugh will finish the forum off just talking around the online learning modules, which have been developed by the Alcohol and Drug Foundation, and hopefully it could be beneficial for you and your committee members and for your club. So if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat function in Zoom. We will make time at the end for questions. Understand that you guys have probably had a huge day, and so we won't make this any longer than 40 minutes, but for anyone who wants to stick around afterwards to have a chat to us, you're more than welcome to. So the Alcohol and Drug Foundation, so we've recently celebrated our 60-year anniversary. We've been around since 1959, and the organisation was established as a coordinated response to the increased use of alcohol following the war. And the focus back then of the organisation was around treatment and education and research. Today, we're Australia's leading organisation committed to preventing and minimising the harm caused by alcohol and other drugs. And we work closely at the community level. So our programs and our policies and our practices, they're all structured to build the capacity of communities such as sporting clubs. And so our programs, for instance, the Good Sports program, which is one of several programs of the Alcohol and Drug Foundation, they're all structured and guided by the National Drug Strategy. So why our work is important. So I won't go through the stats there that are on the screen, but I guess I just want to emphasise that they clearly show that alcohol and other drug use causes a significant harm for Australian communities. And I guess it's important to acknowledge that at the moment, in these current circumstances that we're living in, these stats are shifting slightly. So for instance, there's less alcohol-related hospitalisations as a result of the nightlife, such as pubs and clubs, which have all been closed. However, there are some growing concerns around the increased use of alcohol in the home as a coping mechanism for social isolation and other pressures. The common thing across all of these stats is that they are preventable. So the work that we do at the Alcohol and Drug Foundation is really around building strong and connected communities, because this essentially can prevent alcohol and other drug-related harms. But we can't actually do this work without communities such as sporting clubs and committee members like yourselves.
Thanks, Steph. So I'm just going to give a bit of an overview about who Good Sports is or are and some of the stuff we do. So Good Sports, as it says there, is Australia's largest and longest running health initiative in community sport. Been operating with sporting clubs for over 2 decades now, and we really want to help them inspire their best, best they can be. Our teams help clubs work through 3 levels, and these levels have been designed to support long-term change around responsible alcohol management, also things like safe transport and promoting smoke-free club environments. We also offer programs to help support things like mental health, healthy eating, junior role modelling, and also programs to help prevent illegal drug harm. The program is completely free and it's designed for busy volunteers. We understand that as volunteers, you guys often don't have the time or the effort or patience sometimes to give up all your time for the sporting club. We want to do our best to help support you, make it as easy as possible for you to make the club a better place. So in Australia, Good Sports have just around 10,000 clubs, which we believe is about half of the sporting clubs in the country. And in Tassie, we're almost at 500 clubs, which we think is about 2/3. So that just goes to show a little bit of a scale in terms of how many clubs we work with. We work with clubs of all diversities, all sizes, all styles. So we're working with as many clubs as we can. There are a heap of benefits of Good Sports that have come from clubs, things like making their club more family friendly, helping new sponsors and new members come on board. It also helps people become more aware of their own behaviour. We also do things like helping club committees work through the tricky paperwork of things like policies, and helping change club culture, which we know is a long-term thing. We don't expect changes to be made overnight, so working with you over time to make the club as best as we can. Recently, Good Sports program had a randomised control trial, and some of the findings were really great. We found that there was a 42% decrease in alcohol-related harms, as well as a 37% decrease in risky drinking. So that really goes to show that Good Sports clubs are more family-friendly and really safe environments, and the stuff that we're doing really helps reduce the harm in the community. As I mentioned, there are 5 programs in Tassie, unlike the rest of the country, that are sort of based around different components of culture. Our core program, Alcohol, as I mentioned, is based around creating a healthy alcohol environment, helping clubs with things like safe transport and creating non-smoking environments. Our nutrition program helps clubs to look after their nutrition and their canteens by things like helping them organise food safety training and looking at their canteen menu, as well as finding things like healthy club fundraising ideas. Our Healthy Minds program, which at the moment only Tasmania are working with, helps clubs to build a really strong culture around mental health, helping clubs reduce the stigma around mental illness and really helping promote help seeking. Our junior program, the last one at the end there, is based around helping clubs promote really good role modelling behaviours for juniors, things like having a policy and setting the standard for what might be appropriate for juniors. And our illegal drugs program, as it sort of mentions, is based around helping clubs avoid harms associated with alcohol and other drug issues, and setting them up in case there were to be an issue. So how can we work with you? Obviously, the way we've been working in the last couple of months has changed quite a bit. We've been doing a lot of phone and Zoom meetings, which has been a little bit different to the way we normally operate. Typically pre and post-COVID, we go out to club committees and meet with the members of the club, talk through the club, work out what you guys want to do and what's the best way to approach it. We do things like helping the club commit an annual accreditation, but then also going with things like reviewing and implementing policies and providing them with a whole heap of different electronic resources as well. So we're going to hear a quick video from Good Sports Clubs about some of the things that they describe about the program, and I'm really keen to show you what they say.
The role that the club plays in the community is it gives an opportunity for children to not only play sport, but they get to mix socially with other people. They get to learn life values, and I think it brings the community together. The wings just spread and it just keeps going. Yeah, so it's a domino effect.
To be a part of a Good Sports program is really important to us. We certainly are a family-friendly club, so people can recognise that we're an alcohol-free zone for the juniors. We are a smoke-free zone, and everything is in the best interest of our children and our players.
It gives the club a better profile when going for grants, but also just about improving the environment for the families. And by improving the environment for families, we encourage more members to come on board as well.
To me, it's about the culture of the club. It just makes people aware about healthy options, drinking in moderation, that type of thing, and then obviously stepping up the levels like we have. You got to also implement that, you can't just talk about it.
With the Good Sports program, they've helped us to look at our food options in our canteen and drinking of water. I'm a full-time working person and I don't have time to read all the policies and regulations, so it's good to have someone help you through the process.
I would recommend Good Sports to any sporting club if they want direction in their club, easy steps, procedures, awareness and lots of help and information available, which was wonderful.
My advice to other clubs is to definitely get involved, and you'll see improvements in your club and improvements as far as sponsors coming in and members participating in the club. So get involved and have a
go. So as Steph mentioned earlier, I've got about 250 clubs I work with in Southern Tassie. And over the last few months, I've been speaking to basically every single one of them, getting an idea of the things that they want to help with at the moment. And two of the key themes they wanted assistance with were helping things like marketing and social media, and also mental health. So I'll touch on things like why clubs use social media, how to get started, planning their posts, and growing their audience. So I suppose most clubs by now would have some form of social media or another. It's really important to be on social media because it helps grow your audience, share updates about the club, and engage with your members and community. It's an awesome tool for local sports clubs, and it's a really great way to contact your members directly. So getting started, there's a few things to consider to start with. So often it's really good to have one or two people who are going to be dedicated to commit to managing the social media. That makes it a little bit easier for keeping the messaging relatively consistent, and it gives it a bit of consistency throughout your social media. In terms of updates, there are a whole heap of different things you can post, and it really depends on the club what they want to post. Things like posting flashbacks, what the club's doing behind the scenes, exercise tips while you're in isolation, and even little competitions are really great ideas. When thinking about the language and tone you'll use in your post, it's important to consider what you're presenting is a really good way to project how the club comes across. Clubs should consider how they want to be presented in the community and what sort of messages they're putting out. So your social media is an extension of the club, and what you post is also a reflection of you as well. In terms of what format you want to use, whether that be things like photo, videos, links, different posts have different advantages. Something like Facebook, for example, is really good for sharing information through text posts. Instagram is quite a popular app now that's a little bit more popular with young people, and it's a really big focus on posting videos and photos. So depending on what you want to post, you can use different social media forms. It's also really important to consider planning your posts. So we've got a little table just there that shows, a nice little way to set out what you want to post. You don't have to make new stuff up all the time. It's really easy to also share things that other people are posting. AFL clubs are a really good example in the community where they might post something that the peak body is reposted. So you don't always necessarily have to post your own things. It might be sharing something in the community that you think is a really good idea and you want to show your community as well. The more you post, it's also really engaging with your members. So that's also something to consider as well. A little tip is to plan your posts in advance using your content calendar, because that way you don't have to sit there thinking for 20 minutes what you want to post beforehand. So in terms of helping you plan, we've got a social media and promotional toolkit, and that provides you with a heap of different resources online that you can download, and these can be shared as well with your local community members. We'll send this out to everyone tomorrow morning, and it's just something that, as I said, clubs can download, have a look at, see what suits them, and go from there. In terms of things that people have been posting a lot of recently, it sort of varies. Some clubs have been really big into posting video coaching drills, whether that be a certain coach of a team posting drills, practicing with their left hand as opposed to their right hands. I'm not a netball player, sadly, but I'm sure there are a whole heap of posts that can be shared onto your social media that can get your members engaged. Doing other things like having an online challenge really encourages people to post their own videos. It doesn't have to always be, the players getting involved. Often it can be fans and general community members to get involved as well. Other ways to involve your members include things like polls and questions. Players like to do player profiles. I know some of the star players like to have their face out there a little bit and get a bit of exposure. But it really depends on what the club wants to post and who they're posting to as well. So in terms of growing your community, there's no point having a social media if no one's going to see it. The best way to get your page out there to start with is usually to engage your members and ask them physically to like or follow the page. Even getting them to share the page to people they know is a really good way to grow it as well. Share content regularly. Like I mentioned before, people are going to want to engage with your page if there's updates semi-frequently. They don't want necessarily information shoved down their throat every 30 seconds, but every day or two, maybe every couple of days, is a good way to get people checking in on your page as well. And start conversations online. So, ask questions with open-ended responses, get people commenting, get people sharing, and get your page out there. The two most popular times to post on social media is in the evening and first thing in the morning. I think evening in particular is a really good one when everyone's getting home from school or work, want to have a little bit of downtime. They might jump on Facebook, for example, scroll through their feed and they can see your club and what they're doing. So in terms of a couple of things that other clubs are doing, South Hobart Football Club in the south of the state have been holding Zoom meetings with their teams, and that's been really popular, I think. It's been a good way to get their players to engage with each other at a time where they can't necessarily just go out on a football field and have a chat. It's a really easy way to. It doesn't require all that much effort from the players. A lot of it's just jumping on their phone or laptop. Redpath Football Club encouraged their members to join a photo challenge, doing things like encouraging players to share photos and videos of themselves practicing their footy skills at home. That's a really great way to get players to re-engage, remember that the footy club's there, remember the good times they had with each other at the club and look forward to coming back. And Canterbury Hockey Club are really great in the mental health space. They recently introduced a mental health and wellbeing committee, and they've got a couple of officers' information there, and that just sort of shows to their members that they're really committed to looking after people and that the club can be a place for support. What not to post? This can be a tricky one. At the end of the day, we can't necessarily force you not to post things, but we really would love for clubs to consider what they do post. As it says there, your club social media is your brands. So if people don't know who your club are and they jump on Facebook or they jump on Instagram and they see people doing things like having a drinking competition, drinking games, particularly if those people are underage, it's not a very good look for the club. Humour's really great, but doing things like inappropriate or offensive posting can often send people the other way. And it's also worth considering that people like sponsors and funders are also viewing who's or the post you're posting. So it's not always just the players that see what you post. So that's a bit of a summary about social media. As I said, I'm more than happy to stick around a little bit later and have a chat to clubs, or even just organise a time to have a chat individually about this.
Great, thanks Hugh. Thanks for that refresher on good sports, and it's really good to see that clubs, there's a diverse range of ways that clubs can use their social media channels and promote messaging and resources and things like that, and great to see some really good examples in Tassie as well. So now we just want to touch a little bit around mental health in your club, so specifically looking at what is mental health, promoting help seeking, social media posts, mental health resources, where to go for support, and staying connected. And as I mentioned at the start of this webinar, the team in Tassie also deliver the Healthy Minds program. So this will essentially give you a bit of a brief introduction, and your Good Sports Relationship Manager will be more than happy to discuss the program in a bit more detail as part of the follow-up. I do want to emphasise that we are not mental health experts or clinicians or practitioners. However, the people who have developed this content and the resources and the Healthy Minds program as a whole are experts in that space. So a brief definition on mental health. So it's defined by the World Health Organization as a state of well-being in which every individual realises his or her own potential. They can cope with the normal stresses of life, they can work productively and fruitfully, and they're able to make a contribution to her or his community. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that in these current circumstances that we're living in, people may not be able to fulfil these definitions. In fact, mental health is a challenge at the moment, and it is a concern. A recent study conducted by the ABC has found that the number of Australians reporting poor mental health has more than doubled compared to a month ago. There's increased feelings of despair and an even more significant increase in feelings of confusion. But the good news is that there are things that clubs can be doing right now to support members' mental health and promote help-seeking behaviours. And as Hugh alluded to earlier, people are on social media now more than ever. So it's a really excellent time for you guys as club members to really be promoting various things around mental health through your social media channels. So things include general mental health suggestions, and Good Sports have some social media messages and posters that I'll share and talk to in a moment. You can publish support service contact information for members that may require further support. You can share positive good news stories through your social media accounts, and that kind of goes back to what Hugh was talking to earlier, posting flashbacks and video coaching, video skills, those kinds of things, and even posting some of just the good news stories of what's going on with club members at the moment is really important. And lastly, encourage your members to reach out to specific members. So that might be a chaplain, it might be another member of the club, or each other if they're feeling isolated. So the Good Sports program in Tassie have partnered up with an organisation named Speak Up Stay Chatty. So they're a Tassie organisation that works closely with sporting clubs and schools and workplaces around positive mental health. So we've teamed up together and developed a number of resources for sporting clubs, which we'll send out following this forum. So one of these is social media posts for clubs to use on their channels. And this is a really good example of one that's really focused around self-care and really emphasising the importance of including self-care as part of your daily routine, and centres around obviously taking a break from our busy lives, starting small, being consistent, and if you need additional support, there's the contact details for Beyond Blue. So that's one example of one of our social media posts amongst a few others. So this is a really fantastic resource that was developed with Speak Up Stay Chatty. Essentially, it's actually called a conversations poster, and essentially it's a tool to guide conversations amongst members of your club around mental health. And I think what's really great about this resource is it can be used with anyone, not just club members. We do have this available in hard copy that we can post to you to display at your club. But in the meantime, we'll certainly send it out via email following this forum, so that'll be in your inbox. So there are 4 key components to the conversations poster. So the first one is around ask. So essentially that's around starting the conversation and opening up the opportunity for that person to talk about, what's going on in their lives. It's the opportunity for you to express concern and really demonstrate that sense of care. So you may open up with a statement saying, "I've noticed you haven't been yourself lately." The second component is understand. So that's really around using open questions to gain a bit more of an understanding of what's going on with that person. So you may ask the question, how long have you been feeling this way? The third component is around refer. So essentially that's around connecting that person with other services or other people in their life. So that might be around connecting them to a GP, crisis lines, maybe someone else within the club, or even a loved one. And finally, there's check-in. So essentially that's a follow-up with the person to check in on how they're going since you last spoke. So, checking in on if they're feeling better, do they need any further support, which really just reinforces that sense of care. One of many beneficial things about this resource is it really starts normalising it really starts normalising the conversations around mental health. So, and it really reduces that perception and stigma that mental health is a negative thing, when in fact it should be part of our day-to-day conversations. That's not to say, it's not to say that that you're an expert or a professional in this space, or you need to do a diagnosis. This is just a simple tool to help you with those conversations, and emphasises that you don't necessarily have to be a professional to have conversations around mental health. So where to go for support? So these are just a few examples of support services available to you. So the first one is Drug Info, and this is actually a service of the Alcohol and Drug Foundation. So it's led by a fabulous team, a really warm and friendly and beautiful team that essentially can provide evidence-based information around alcohol and other drugs, and also lead people to relevant services. So they're confidential, they're non-judgmental, and can be contacted by telephone or email. The second one there is Beyond Blue, who are a fabulous organisation, and they've set up a service specifically around coronavirus, mental wellbeing and support. There's Lifeline, so they're a national service providing Australians access to 24-hour crisis support. We have Men's Line, so they're a free help, support, referrals and counselling for men. And then there's Headspace, who provide information and support for young people, including their parents and carers. So these are just a few examples, but your Good Sports Relationship Manager can work with you around what are the available support services in your local area. And just lastly, we just wanted to emphasise that staying connected is more important than ever, particularly in this time of social isolation and physical distancing. If you are aware of any club members that live on their own, please reach out to them, whether it's over email or text or a phone call or over social media. It really does go a long way in these times that we're living in. And the same applies for those who are self-isolating due to the fact that they're at high risk. Please reach out to them as well, because like I said, a little goes a long way. And of course, promote to your members to connect to each other and to reach out to people as well. Our colleague Shay actually found this image on the Beyond Blue website, which has a really powerful message around, remember to reach out to friends and colleagues who get it. You don't have to face these feelings alone. So this is an example of some messaging or an image that you can share through your own social media channels from other organisations.
Thanks, Steph. So I'm just going to really briefly mention a couple of the online modules we have available for clubs that are part of our different programs. So we've got two main ones. The outcome management module is, as it sort of alludes to, it's based around managing alcohol consumption at your club, learning about the risks associated with alcohol consumption and managing intoxicated people. It goes for about 15 minutes or so, and it's a really good resource for clubs and their committees, particularly when considering things like having end-of-year functions. At the ADF, we're certainly not prohibitionists. We understand that there's perfectly capable clubs that can have good relationships with alcohol, but it just goes through the basics of alcohol and how it can how it can affect clubs. The second module, as it sort of suggests again, the tackling illegal drugs module, goes over things like what to do if there's a drug incident in your club, the different types of drugs that members may encounter, and also the effects of drugs on their brain and body. The key thing I want to sort of reinforce now is that we certainly don't suggest that clubs have illegal drug issues, but again, they're a really good educational tool for committees in case of a what if type scenario. And it just goes over a couple of really good examples to help educate club members and club committees. So where to from here? We really would love to keep the ball rolling with your clubs. So for the clubs in the southern part of the state, we'd love to organise a meeting with myself. The clubs in the north and northwest, Shay is absolutely amazing up there. And we'd love to tee up a time to have a chat with you guys sort of one-on-one about where to from here. So we can do things like, reviewing your social media approach, helping to promote help seeking to your members, and completing online learning modules. Basically, we want to work with you, see where your club's at, see what could best suit you, and help you with it. So that's basically it tonight. As Steph mentioned earlier, if you've got any questions, leave them in the chat box. More than happy to answer and have a chat with people if they want to stick around. But other than that, we'd love to get in contact with you and take up a time and go from here. I'll leave it a minute or so, see if anyone wants to write anything in the chat.
So I've just unmuted everyone as well. So you're welcome to ask a question as well, or even if you'd like to share any experiences with your clubs in terms of how you guys are remaining connected to each other during this time. We'd love to hear from you.
I'll go. It's Carmel here. Hello.
Hi, Carmel.
Yeah, thank you for today. It was really informative just to understand that what you can offer to the club. I think we're I'm in Launceston, just at a local netball club, junior and senior level. And I think just going through what you guys have offered, I think we're doing an okay job, but there's certainly some hints and tips there that we can certainly improve on, and it would be good to talk to someone with our board and see how we can do better.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. I think it's probably also really important to remember that while everyone can always do better, you only have to take a first step. Doing one thing to help one member is better than doing nothing.
Thanks for sharing, Carmel. I'm Shay and I'm the relationship manager for Northern Tasmania, and you can see my details on the screen there if you want to take my number or email, and we can set up a time to chat for sure.
Sure, thanks.
Thanks, Carmel. Thanks, Shay. Any other questions or anyone want to share how they're going at their club in terms of connecting with each other? Beautiful. All right. Well, we'll certainly be in touch. Hugh will be sending out the resources that we touched on this evening tomorrow morning, so that will arrive in your inboxes. And then both Shay and Hugh will follow up with each of you who attended tonight to hopefully set up a meeting and talk through this in a little bit more depth. But thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it. And on behalf of all of us, please take care and enjoy the rest of your evening and week.